Senator, welcome back. Good to see you.
Good to see you, Sean. Thank you.
All right. Before I get to that, I have to punish you and be a horrible host and ask you about the slip of the tongue that made so much news last week, if you don't mind, and you'll indulge us. Here's what happened.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years from now, if I do a good job as vice president, I'm sorry.
You guys all got that, right?
As a senator?
You all got that, right?
If I do a good job as a senator instead of a vice president, I'll have a chance to do all sorts of things, including commissioner of the NFL, which is where the real power is, you know.
Yeah. Well, do you want to explain that?
Well, that's what you said. It was a slip of the tongue, but when you get asked so many times, the stuff starts floating in your head. So in terms of the word, you know, so. Well, but that's why, you know, at this point, you know, Sean, I think that Governor Romney has now begun a formal process. He's asked some people to do that process for him, and I think we should all respect that, all of us who participate in politics, inside and outside of it, and let them do their work. And so, you know, we're not going to be talking about that anymore.
All right, but if they came to you and said, we'd like to consider you, we need your help in the vetting process, would you be open to it?
Well, I'm not going to talk about anything that has to do with that anymore, because I just want to be respectful of their process. And so,
okay.
But next question.
There's an inside joke behind that answer. Thank you very much, Senator. All right, let me go to what we're talking about here. Now, this is interesting because a lot of the more draconian portions of Obamacare don't go into effect until after the election, a lot of them starting next year, 2014. And this one provision, though, would go into effect just, you know, a few weeks before the election, and the Medicare Advantage program. Now, what they cynically did is they're funneling this $8 billion, I would even argue you could use the term slush fund, through the Health and Human Services to delay its implementation by saying it's an experiment, and the experiment is, what if we don't change things? That's what the experiment is, so that they won't feel the wrath of voters that they predict would be angry at Obamacare. How do you react to that?
Yeah, you know, one of the big issues I've had with Washington in general and the administration in specific is about Medicare, because in addition to having millions of people in the state of Florida that are on Medicare, one of them is my mother. And so to me, Medicare matters deeply. And my mother's on Medicare Advantage, which is a program that I think is one of the few choice programs we have in the public sector in the United States. And so everything is political with this administration. I mean, everything is designed around the elections, and increasingly so you're starting to see that with things like what you're highlighting. And the bigger problem with Medicare is this president doesn't have a plan to save it. Now, one of the things that's going to come out in this actuarial report that comes out is it's going to show that Medicare spends less money than it takes in. It is headed towards bankruptcy. We can never allow that to happen. And if there was real leadership from the White House, there would be a sense of urgency about saving Medicare. And instead of saving it, they want to play politics with it. They want to run ads on it. They want to Ryan on it, you know, instead of focusing on the fact that this is a very important program and that unless we save it, we're not going to have it.
But Senator, you know, we just played Ed Markey earlier in the program, and he's saying the GOP, you know, out to get grandma. You mentioned the Paul Ryan lookalike ad, throwing grandma over the cliff. I mean, every time any effort has been made to save Medicare from inevitable bankruptcy, it gets demagogued. It gets, you know, the hyperbole comes out. The Democrats have signaled, the president himself has said Republicans want the elderly and kids with autism to fend for themselves. So this is going to be the campaign. How do you combat that?
It is. Well, let me tell you, first of all, we got to tell people why this is going to be the campaign. The reason why they say these outrageous things is because they don't want this campaign to be about the president's record. If this campaign's about the president's record, he's going to lose, and he knows that. His is a record where everything is worse than it was the day he swore in. So they don't want this to be about the economy. They don't want it to be about his record. They're going to want it to be about everything else, and so that's why they say these outrageous things. Now, let me say about Medicare what we need to be consistent about, at least as far as I'm concerned. My mom's on Medicare. I will never support any changes to Medicare that would negatively affect her or anyone like her who's currently on the program. I do believe, however, that people like me that are decades away from retirement, we are going to have to accept that in order to keep Medicare as it stands for our parents and our grandparents, our Medicare, my generation's Medicare, is going to have to look different. You know, especially if we want one. Is that too much to ask of our generation after all our parents have done for us? But that's our point. We got to drive that home.
Every time it's been attempted, anytime any responsible proposal has been put forward, you know what happens. It gets demagogued.
Yeah.
Look, what's frustrating to me is you watch this process unfold, and the president does this with abandon. And it seems that he'll say anything to hang on to that nice house, the nice plane, the nice helicopter. And one has to wonder, you know, is the country ready to, you know, we borrow 40 cents of every dollar. He said that we're borrowing from the Bank of China in the name of our kids and grandkids.
Yeah, but here's the thing. People get what's happening. Increasingly, they're starting to understand. If you went to the American people and said, should we keep Medicare as it is right now for the people who have it right now, but in order to do that, should we ask future generations, people like me and younger who are decades away from retirement, to accept that their Medicare is going to be very good, but different than their parents, in order to save their parents' and grandparents' Medicare? The vast majority of Americans would say absolutely. And the sooner we do that, the better off this country is going to be. And that's why we need to elect Mitt Romney, because he's the only one running that's willing to say that and do that. This president has no plan to save Medicare, none. He's been in office for 3.5 years. He has no plans to save this program whatsoever, and he should be held accountable for that in November.
All right, so you sure there's nothing you want to add about the issue of vice president? I'm kidding.
Nice
All right, this is a very inside joke. So we were giving a speech together in Naples, Florida, and I was fashionably late. You were up at the podium giving a great 45-minute speech. I was only like a few minutes fashionably late, and I said, I'm sorry. You were gracious enough to introduce me. I said, I'm sorry, Senator. I apologize for I'm sorry, Mr. Vice President. And what was the reaction? The room erupted. They liked the idea. It just happened, very organically. Nice to see you, Senator. Thanks for being with us. Good answer. You did very well. Thank you.
Thank you.